Okay, I'm Serge Capon. I'm marketing manager and international business development manager for VK Architects and Engineers. We have an office in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam and in Hanoi. Our roots are Belgian, so over there we have 4 offices. Company exists over 65 years, and we are specialized in designing and engineering hospitals.
And so you obviously said there that you're based, that your company is mainly based in Belgium. So what was it that attracted you to come to the Asian market?
Well, we did some kind of research, desk research and on-site research, let's say 7 to 8 years ago. And already then we found out that the Southeast Asian market is a very vibrant market, a very promising market. So we decided to come over here because we feel that the future of doing good business is over here. There's a lot of challenges in the healthcare sector over here. So that's our main asset as a company. So we wanted to sell that USP, that unique selling point as a company in Asia.
You obviously mentioned there some of the challenges that the healthcare industry in Asia is facing. What are some of the most prominent ones that you're coming across?
Well, the biggest challenge, in my opinion, is the combination or the combining of the financial restrictions in some markets, like in Vietnam and Indonesia, where health coverage is not universal already, also in the Philippines, with the the growing population, the population boom in this area of the world. So combining this and knowing where some countries were 10 to 20 years ago, in the mix with all the technological innovation, makes it a very challenging business to get it on the same level as, let's say, the Western European level. Of course, some countries are ahead, some countries are a little bit further down the line, but that's the main challenge is, in fact, combining all these factors and convincing the customer, the hospital management, that healthcare design and engineering is a very specific business and that you need experts for that.
And so I suppose that you work with a number of countries in Asia. So do you find that you then have to adapt your approach to those different countries based on their financial sort of security?
Yes, every country is different. Vietnam is different from Indonesia. Indonesia is different from the Philippines. China is again another story. We decided first to build on our hub in Vietnam and to work from there on. Social and cultural differences are very important when you do business, so that's the first thing. You have to learn a little bit about the country. You don't come in as the Western expert, because that's not the approach we tend to have when we come here. We try to be humble and to learn from the country and from the people, because every country also has its own regulations. So we need to be on site, sometimes with a local partner, sometimes as a full-blown own agency. So that's the approach we mostly of the time handle. Yes.
So obviously, you said there that you very much need to be aware of and respect the individual sort of nuances of each country. But are there any sort of trends or patterns that you know from Europe that you do predict will influence how Asia sort of moves forward?
Well, I think as in other parts of the world, but Asia is up front or running up front. I think the tech craziness in Asia is big, so the adaptation and the penetration of new technology goes very rapidly here. So people are very keen on tech. That's also having its impact on the healthcare sector, for sure. Of course, when you plan to build a new hospital facility, it's not built in a couple of months, so it takes time. And in the meantime, technology advances already. So that's also a challenge we face over here. Yes.
And so we've spoken there about the challenges that some of the hospitals and the healthcare industry in Asia is facing. How does that impact back on your organisation and the challenges that you're facing at the moment?
Well, to be honest, when we look at the Vietnamese situation, it took us quite some time also to get our own staff on a higher level, because hospital expertise is really quite different from building an office or building a residential facility. Certainly when it comes to M&E engineering. So we invest a lot in education of our own people. That's one thing that impacts on the business. Another thing is the local perception. For instance, in Vietnam again, is that people tend to be willing to pay for what they see, for what is built. But we have to really explain to our customer, to our local customer, the importance of a good concept of a hospital, because in the long run you earn money when you have a good design in your hospital. If you have a bad working design, then you fail to make money with that hospital. So it's extremely important to tell them to think in the long run in terms of 30 years, 40 years. And that's sometimes also quite a challenge to tell the people.
So you've clearly made a few suggestions there, but if I did put you on the spot and said, what was your number one tip to someone who's thinking about building a hospital, what would that be?
If you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. So buy in the real experts from the beginning, pay a little more on design, and you'll get an efficient building in the end, which will save you hundreds of thousands of dollars in the long run, because the labor cost here in Asia will also rise comparably to the European and the American standards. So if you're not proactive on that, if you're not anticipating on what is going to happen over here, then in 20 to 30 years you will be having a huge problem with some facilities.
Okay. And so to come back to the show and to HMA 2017, what is it that is sort of your personal or your company's objectives about attending this year?
Well, for us it's of extreme importance also to meet the right people, to meet the decision makers in the hospital sector, and they are here. So last year we had the lucky coincidence that the organization took place in our second hometown, which is Saigon, Ho Chi Minh. So we felt like, okay, we have to do this in our hometown. So meeting the people over there from, for instance, the Philippines and from Indonesia, were sufficient enough for us to do a second edition over here, because it's a regional thing, and you feel that Asia and Southeast Asia is one region, and people tend to look over the borders very easily and learn from each other. So we appreciate the hospitality people have over here. It's every time it's a great experience to come over to HMA and to meet a lot of new people and potential customers. So one thing is meeting new potential customers, of course. Second thing, of course, is the branding of VK Architects and Engineers in this region. So we already are, let's say, a well-known brand over there in Vietnam and in Europe, but of course there's a lot of work to do over here also.
And so, if and hopefully you will, and if you were to join us in 2018, when we'll be in Thailand, what would you hope that the conversation is? Where do you hope we'll have moved to in the next 12 months?
That our reputation even is stronger or becoming stronger. I hope we can land a project in another country in this region, so let's say Indonesia or the Philippines, so we can show off new projects on our booth next year if we are there, but I have to still put the signature on the paper.
And so final question then, if you could visit any hospital, either across Asia or across the world, and perhaps from the design point of view, and really explore how that hospital was put together, do you have a hospital that you'd want to visit?
Not especially. Everyone talks when I will be in Thailand. I would like to visit the Bumrungrad because that's a very famous one. But I think every project has its speciality, and that's also a thing we have to explain to our customers, that there's no copy paste in design land. People think or tend to think that you can copy paste one hospital into another country or from one other country to another. It's not true. Every context is different. All the stakeholders are different. Social culture environment is different. Demographic can be different. So there's so many factors that influence your building and the facility you're going to build. that every project has its specialty.